The shortcut. Act 1. Have you ever taken a road thinking you chose the route, when in truth it was the road that chose you? That morning, 3 friends sped across the US the way you speed through your own youth, laughing loud, windows down, a song turning into a personal anthem, and a mental map that only said forward. Lucas, the curious cool kid, drove with one hand and fished stories out of the air with the other. Any sign, any gas station, any roadside ruin could become content. He said journalism was that, knowing how to listen to what no one was asking. Marina, the responsible skeptic, wore her seatbelt tight and kept a steady gaze, not out of fear but habit. She studied biology and had a compulsion to explain the world through cause and effect. In the glove compartment, sunscreen; on the seat, a bottle of water; in her head, lists. Daniel, the sensitive artist, sat in the back with a notebook on his lap. The kind of person who writes down what he can't say. Sometimes he smiled to himself, as if recognizing an image he hadn't seen yet. Sometimes he frowned, as if sensing a bad rhyme coming. "Turn it up," Lucas said, drumming the steering wheel. "This is the trip's song." "Trip's song? We're at about 7 of those," Marina countered, but she smiled. "7 is mystical," Daniel said without looking up. "Or at least it works in titles. 7 things that—" "Here we go," Lucas laughed. 6 reasons we should stop at the next gas station. The 7th is the bathroom, Marina decreed. "That one I'll back." The gas station appeared the way American gas stations always seem to appear. Suddenly, a promise of bad coffee and a questionable bathroom planted in the middle of a whole lot of nothing. The facade wore faded colors. The pump stood metallic and faithful, like horses stalled in the sun. A bell chimed when they pulled in, and an attendant stepped out under the awning, drying his hands on a rag that had seen better days. "Fill it up?" he asked, with the easy friendliness of someone who knows the rhythm of the road. "Fill it up, and if you can, a miracle for our route," Lucas joked. "The main highway's under construction." Marina got straight to it. "We're headed to Riverton. A sign warned of a long backup ahead. Is there a better way?" The attendant lifted his chin toward a band of denser trees across the road. "Lucky you. There's a shortcut right there. Take the side road after the red fence. You can't miss it, and keep straight. It'll drop you back on the main before the jam and spit you out near Riverton's north exit." He paused briefly, almost smiling. "And on the way, you pass a place with some old stones. Nice to look at. They're in a clearing. Easy to find. When the woods open all of a sudden, you're there." While the tank filled, Lucas noticed the attendant's pendant. A dark cord holding an irregular stone that seemed to drink the light. "Cool pendant," he said. "Where's it from?" The man touched the stone with his thumb, an automatic, intimate gesture. "From there," he said, pointing again toward the shortcut. "They're older than all of us." Inside the little store, the trio performed the ritual. A lukewarm coffee for Lucas, water for Marina, a granola bar for Daniel. At the register, the attendant repeated himself with the natural tone of a fisherman giving a tip. "Take the side road without worry. Quiet road, no traffic, you'll like it. The clearing pops out of nowhere like someone pushed the trees aside with a hand." "Quiet?" Lucas cocked an eyebrow. "I like that." "Quiet is perfect for keeping focus," Marina corrected. "Quiet lets you hear your ideas," Daniel murmured. Back at the car, Lucas hesitated for a second, as if he were about to ask something else about the pendant. The attendant noticed, touched the stone again, and ended the subject with the same phrase, now sounding almost like a roadside blessing. "From there. Older than all of us." The bell chimed as the doors shut. Lucas signaled toward the side road. The shortcut waited, and somewhere ahead, a clearing did too. The side road began the way side roads should, narrow, the pavement still intact, flanked by trees that drew closer to each other like people learning to whisper. The GPS flickered for a moment, then came back with a steady grey line. On the radio, a track none of them remembered cueing played as if it had always been there. A simple chorus, one of those hooks that could live inside a childhood memory. "Guys," Marina said lightly, "if we get lost, it's Lucas's fault." "Journalism is taking informed detours," he shot back. We're not getting lost, we're finding ourselves faster. Good line, Daniel noted. Informed detours. Write this too. Stopping to look at old stones, Lucas added, winking. The billboards rose as if they'd sprouted from the ground. Old, but immaculate. Bright paint, earnest slogans, no millennium irony. A motel with a swimming pool that promised always blue water. A pie restaurant with a photo of a pie that actually looked good. A tire shop with a smiling mascot holding a tire like a basketball hoop. Ads that had forgotten to grow cynical with time. I miss when ads only promised what they could deliver, Lucas said. Always blue water is a bold promise, Marina replied, but the charm won her over. The song shifted to another comfortable track. Inside the car, the air felt like vacation air. Scraps of jokes, sentences that didn't finish, attention drifting between the window and the front seat. A little further on, another set of billboards. Same motel, now spreading the pool image from a different angle. Same pie restaurant, the pie sliced, the filling gleaming. The same tire shop, the mascot insistent, the smile genuinely friendly. They reused the budget, Lucas joked. Bought a package, 3 consecutive placements. Local marketing, Marina shrugged. Normal. The GPS stayed true. The road stayed quiet. The sky stayed that kind of clear that fools you, a promise of an endless afternoon. Marina checked the dash clock and, without knowing why, glanced at the sun through the window. It was high, yellow, unhurried. Everything as it should be. And yet a tiny prickle brushed the back of her neck, the kind you confuse with a stray hair out of place. What is it? Lucas noticed. Nothing, she said. True enough. I think I dozed with my eyes open. Another run of billboards. Motel, pie, tires. Same colors, same polish, same nostalgia for a time that had never been theirs. Wow, Daniel chuckled under his breath. These guys really want us to stop. Want us to stop or to keep going, Lucas teased. Think about it. What if the sequence is an invitation to stay on the gas? You and your theses, Marina shook her head. Don't call it intentional repetition, or you'll turn it into an academic paper. For now, the asphalt was a friend, the trees, silent accomplices. The smell drifting in through the window was warm brush and resin. When things simplify, thoughts get bigger. Sometimes I think I've dreamed this road, Daniel said without theatrics. Everyone dreams about roads, Lucas replied. It's a standard dream, like falling off a cliff or showing up naked at school. Thanks for the image, Marina grimaced. Some of us still want lunch. They passed a small sign sunk into the weeds. Recommended speed 45. Not an order, a suggestion. Lucas obeyed without argument, as if obeying suggestions were part of the contract with that landscape. The radio played a different song, but a similar one, like all the station's tracks were close cousins. Another set of billboards, motel, pie, tires. Okay, Lucas said, amused, one eyebrow up. Now it's an inside joke. Side road, small budget, Marina insisted on a world she understood. It's plausible. It is, Daniel agreed. Plausible is a good word. The sun kept to its arc, pulling the shadows along gently. Marina narrowed her eyes, measured the rear view's reflection on the dash, the habit of someone who likes to check the sky's clock. Everything normal. Afternoon advancing, heat easing, that light that begins to gild the leaves. What now? Lucas asked, almost fondly, the tone of someone who knows she thinks in angles and hours the way she breathes. Nothing, she said with a tight smile. Just my habit of telling time by the sun. We collect impressions, Daniel said, jotting again. They turn into memory one day. They entered a stretch where the trees opened up, letting the wind cross the road like someone crossing an empty hall. A crow perched on a pole and watched them pass, and nothing about that was extraordinary. The pie restaurant's billboard appeared again with a twist, now a close-up of a slice on a checkered plate. I'd definitely eat that, Lucas said, and this time Marina laughed for real. You'd eat the checkered plate. The attendant's gas station faded behind them, like all things that don't need remembering. But for a moment, Lucas thought about the pendant. Not as a mystery, it didn't have the weight for that yet, but as a solid image stuck in some corner of his mind. The stone's texture, the way it pulled at the light. "That pendant was interesting, huh?" he said, casual. "Local handicraft," Marina said, filing the stone under the same category as a roadside fridge magnet. "Regional quirks." "Older than all of us," Daniel repeated softly, as if testing a line against a wall to see if it echoed. They passed an improvised overlook, a dirt pull-off, a dented guardrail, a view that promised green valleys if anyone felt like stopping. They didn't. Beauty doesn't always ask for an audience. Ahead, another set of billboards, motel pie tires, and this repetition wasn't funny anymore. It was just a feature of the road, like asphalt and the yellow center line. "If we see that smiling mascot one more time, I'm giving him a name," Lucas joked. "Do it," Marina said, calculating distance on the dash and comparing it in her head. "Call him Optimized Budget." "I'd vote for Good Guy," Daniel said. "He looks like the type who'd lend you an air pump on a bad day." The road went on. The world did too. And the story, up to that point, was only this. 3 young people, a car, a shortcut. None of them knew it, but the narrative had already chosen where to breathe. That's why Marina checked the sun again. That's why Lucas thought about the stones. That's why Daniel felt for a second that the blank page in his notebook wasn't so empty. Like letters, somewhere, were just waiting for him to remember. "How long until we're back on the main road?" Marina asked. Not out of anxiety, but because it's the kind of question that keeps the universe organized. "According to the GPS," Lucas said, tapping it lightly. "Not long." "Not long" is a phrase that always lies, Daniel murmured, maybe to himself. More billboards, motel, pie, tires. The mascot's grin, the pool too blue, the close-up slice, normal. So normal it almost shone. The music slipped again, one chorus into another, like changing tracks without changing the mood. The air grew a bit warmer. The wind a bit lazier. Marina sipped her water, screwed the cap on precisely, and set it back in the cup holder. "We should stop to eat later," she said, ticking off in her head. Enough gas, enough water, enough time. "We're stopping at the pie place," Lucas decided. "It's already a destination." Then they passed a brown sign, the heritage kind, pointing to a geologic point of interest a few miles ahead. It had been washed by many rains, but still held a drawing of standing stones. "The old stones," Daniel smiled, like he was meeting characters from a book again. "Nice to look at," Lucas repeated, now doing the attendant's voice. "If there's a safe trail, we'll pull over," Marina conceded. 5 minutes. 10, Lucas bargained. 7, Daniel declared, and they all laughed, because 7 had already become an inside joke in that car. The pavement thumped over a patch, nothing serious. To the left, an open field tossed up the smell of burnt grass. To the right, the trees drew close again, making a gentle, almost intimate corridor. And in the middle of that corridor, Marina, without meaning to, compared the sun's position with the antenna's shadow reflected on the hood. A quick calculation, the kind she did to pass time. Something didn't quite add up. Not like an alarm, just like a clock running half a minute slow and not worth a watchmaker's visit. She inhaled, exhaled, and filed the feeling under check later. "Everything okay?" Lucas asked, not out of worry, just paying attention. "All good," she said, sincere enough. "The road is quiet." "In a good way," Daniel added, and no one disagreed. The geologic point of interest sign appeared again, now with a more insistent arrow. A wide dirt pull-off opened ahead, inviting almost a hug. Lucas signaled, eased in, and killed the engine. The quiet that followed wasn't absolute. There were birds, the whine of an insect, the world, but the car, now silent, seemed to make room for a bigger kind of listening. 5 minutes, Marina reminded them, already laughing at her own role. 7, Daniel reaffirmed, raising his notebook like a clock. 8, because I'm taking pictures, Lucas announced, grabbing his phone. They got out. Heat rose off the pavement into their souls. The smell of earth hit their faces. Ahead, behind a low fence, the first stones stood up like half-bent knees, shy and ancient. They weren't ruins, they were presents. Lucas framed his shot. Marina studied the lichens and layers. Daniel ran his hand over the cold surface like a greeting. "Pretty," Marina said again. "And old," Daniel added. "And definitely nice to look at," Lucas laughed, and the joke repeated for the third time, earning its place as a catchphrase. They didn't know it, but this would be the last moment when everything, absolutely everything, could still be explained without breaking something inside. The sun here was just a sun. The stones, just stones. The road, just a road. And yet, when they got back in the car and Lucas turned the key, Marina glanced up one last time just to confirm the sky was the same as always. It was. Of course it was. The engine caught on the first try. They shut the doors almost in unison, like ending a scene with unpracticed synchronicity. Lucas shifted into gear, checked the mirror out of courtesy, and the mirror returned the image of the pull-off emptying behind them, like a sigh. "Ready?" he asked, a question that doesn't need an answer. "Always," Daniel said. "Almost always," Marina corrected, laughing. And the car slid back onto the road. The asphalt received them. The billboards waited up ahead, and the sun, obedient, began to drop behind the treetops, promising a long, drawn-out evening. Nothing, so far, required more than a simple explanation. Nothing, so far, asked anyone to believe in the impossible. Not yet. Evening bruised the sky into purples and honeyed gold, the kind of light that makes everything look harmless. The shortcut kept unspooling ahead of them, a ribbon through trees that leaned in close as if to hear. They talked the way people do when the day's still easy. Lucas promised pie like a tour guide who'd already been tipped. Marina watched the gas gauge with half an eye and the road with the other, inventorying the world without meaning to. Daniel wrote a single line, then drew a box around it, as if framing a thought he wasn't ready to read out loud. The billboards returned. Same motel, same pool. Always blue water. Same pie, same perfect slice on a checkered plate, same tire shop, the mascot with round, friendly eyes, cradling a tire like a halo. They passed, they nodded, they forgot. It was all so normal you could swear it had been designed by committee for maximum forgettability. A mile, maybe two. Trees like a careful audience, dusk settling in. Then the billboards again. Same motel, same pool, but the water's surface looked a shade too smooth, like glass held flat by a hand you couldn't see. Same pie, same slice, except the glossy filling caught a cold glint from their headlights that warmth shouldn't make. Same tire shop, same smile. Of course it was the same smile. "Okay, déjà vu," Lucas said, playing it light. "Budget buy, print 3, repeat 12. "Local routes recycle inventory," Marina said, logic landing easily. "It's fine." Daniel checked his phone like reception was a superstition that sometimes worked. One bar flickered on, then off, like a firefly that didn't owe anyone anything. He scribbled, "Patterns choose us." They drove. The sun slid down the seam of the treetops and left a long afterglow. The air got a little heavier, as if someone had opened the door to a humid room. Billboards again. The motel pool, still blue, still always, but the tiny figures in the photo were gone, like someone had wiped them away with a careful thumb. The pie, same slice, only the cheerful curl of steam was missing. The mascot, round-eyed, tire lifted, smile exactly printed, and somehow more generous at one corner, as if the ink had bled. "Guys," Daniel said, more to the notebook than to them, "how far apart were those last sets?" "A minute? 2? Lucas kept the tone buoyant. "County planning or an ad tyrant with a warehouse full of signs." The radio slipped into static between songs, a thin hush-like air moving in an empty theater. When the next track came, it felt like the one before it. The same chord progression, the same almost whistled hook. Background music, the kind that never complains. "We're still good on time," Marina said, mostly to herself. "We'll hit the main before dark." Headlights found something on the shoulder. "Stop," Marina said, and Lucas was already braking. A car sat slumped at the edge of the road, nose angled into the weeds like it had given up mid-thought. Older model, paint the color of a bad mood. One door cracked open. No light inside, no hazards ticking. A faint mist hung above the hood, catching their beams and making the air look visible. "Do not," Marina began. "We have to," Lucas said, but he didn't sound like Lucas. They stepped out together because that's who they were. Night pressed soft and damp against their skin. Crickets had the good sense to fall quiet. "Hello?" Lucas called. The sound stayed obediently close to his mouth. No answer. He circled to the driver's side and peered in. Seats, floor mats, a dried coffee ring on the console. On the passenger seat, a spiral-bound notebook with the cover bent into a dog ear. "Notebook," he said gently. Marina breathed once, then again, then reached in and lifted it like a fragile animal. Daniel angled his phone light so the pages became words instead of paper. They read together, all of it, in one breath, the way you read something that changes how the room feels. June 17th, noon. Shortcut, old stones, a clearing, cooler under the trees. Writing this so future me laughs at how dramatic I get. Water low, gas fine. June 17th, late afternoon. Same billboards, motel, pie, tires, and I'm not imagining it. Pretty in a way that tastes like childhood road trips and edited heat. June 17th, evening. Kept going. Same sequence. Funny, then not. Radio plays the same kind of song. I keep thinking the paint is wet. June 17th, night. The road is long in a way that doesn't feel like distance. Saw a ripple on the motel pool like a touch. The pie looks glossy like stone in rain. The tire guy keeps smiling. I do not like being smiled at by pictures. June 18th, after midnight. Drew the route. Lines disagree with each other. Left a bottle by a mile marker. Passed it again. Air is damp like a cellar. I keep thinking about necklaces. June 18th. Later. I said his name by mistake. Not a name, really. A shape the mouth makes when it's trying to be many mouths. He walks in places between the signs. He wears faces that look borrowed. I won't be here when he picks one. June 18th, last. I won't wait for the tank to run dry. Better to finish this before they arrives. The handwriting stopped there. No flourish, no underline. Just a line ending like a breath that didn't. They didn't look at each other for a long second. "What does 'finish this' mean?" Lucas asked quietly, as if the question might split if he spoke too hard. "Leave the car," Marina said, forcing practicality to be a raft. "Find help, wave someone down." Daniel's light slid across the back seat. The floor mat had been shoved aside, leaving a rectangle of cleaner carpet like a pale imprint. Pine needles were dragged from the floor across the sill, as if something had been pulled, or had pulled itself, toward the dark. There was blood, old, rust-dark, speckled along the door sill and sunk into the carpet fibers. No spectacle, just the trace of a movement no one owned. "Let's go," Marina said. Her voice shook and found itself again. "Now." They climbed back in. The car felt like a shelter, but a thin one. Lucas turned the key like a prayer. The engine answered. He pulled out. The abandoned car slipped behind them and shut its eyes. "Okay," Lucas said, as if narrating could tame the world. "We keep speed. We conserve. If there's a turn we missed, we take it. If there's a sign, we follow it." Silence agreed because words didn't know how. They drove on. The billboards greeted them like hosts who'd learned their lines. The motel's pool was darker, reflecting their headlights and nothing else. The pie's slice glimmered with a wetness that didn't read as sugar. The mascot's eyes held a tiny light now, a gentle gloss like a drop of water on glass. Marina stared at the dash. The math of fuel and miles stopped speaking the same language. "Turn around," she said. "We go back." Lucas didn't argue. He braked, checked mirrors out of habit, and made a careful U-turn. The trees accepted the motion as if they'd rehearsed it with him. They drove the other way, which felt like the same way. The radio searched and found their station again, the same chorus they now knew by heart. A minute, maybe two. A bend, a longer straight. The billboards waited. Motel. Pool heavy as shade. Pie. The slice leaned the smallest degree left. Mascot. Smile exactly the same size it had been, and yet it reached farther. The tire's inner circle looked deep. Then why are the billboards still facing us? Marina snapped, too loud, the sound cracking. We turned around. We should be seeing backs, bolts, plywood, rust, not smiles. Lucas checked the rear view. Empty shoulder, clean ditch, no slumped sedan. Where's the car? Daniel asked. We didn't pass it. We didn't pass anything, Marina said, voice thinning, because we never went back. Lucas threw it into reverse on reflex. The engine complained, then rolled them forward. The odometer ticked up like it was humoring a child. Another trio rose to greet them. Fronts, always fronts. Motel. The printed moon leaned closer than the sky allowed. Pie, glaze that read as wet skin, not sugar. Mascot. The smile felt tugged from behind the paper. The tire's hollow learned how to look back. Static crowded the speakers, then slipped into the air between their mouths, shaping syllables without words. Outside, the trees breathed a cellar-cold damp that didn't belong to weather. We didn't turn around, Daniel said, barely audible. We can't turn around. Marina pressed her palms to her eyes and lowered them wet. This isn't a loop. It's a throat. Lucas stared as the next trio rose out of the dark. Motel, pie, tires, presenting themselves full front, perfectly composed, as if the road had decided there was no such thing as behind. His laugh came out wrong, like a cough. That's not how objects behave. Daniel twisted in his seat, searching the shoulder through the rear window. Where's the car? It should have been there. The abandoned sedan slumped like a thought that failed. It wasn't. The shoulder ran clean and undisturbed, as if the road had chewed and swallowed the memory. We didn't come back, Marina said, the words brittle. We can't come back. Lucas threw the shifter into reverse on reflex. The engine growled, the car rolled forward. The headlights ate pavement that should have been behind them. The odometer ticked up as if humoring a child. Stop! Stop! Marina's hands trembled. She pressed her palms to her eyes as if she could pin the world in place. When she lowered them, tears had found their way out, quiet and relentless. This isn't a loop. It's a funnel. The billboards waited, polite and inevitable. Motel. The pool's blue had gone heavy, a bruise of water. The printed moon in the corner leaned closer than the sky allowed. Pie. The glaze refused to be sugar. It clung like a thin skin, wet where no heat lived. Mascot. The smile measured exactly the same as before, but the corners felt pulled, as if fingers you couldn't see were widening it from behind the paper. The tire's hollow was an eye that learned. Static bloomed on the radio, then thinned into a hush that selected syllables from nowhere. Not words, shapes of words like lips practicing. Daniel reached for the knob and froze because the whisper didn't come from the speakers anymore. It threaded the air between their mouths. Out, Marina pleaded suddenly. We run. We leave the car. Her voice broke on the last word. They opened the doors. Night stepped in, colder than weather. The trees exhaled a damp that didn't belong to forests so much as basements. Somewhere between the billboards, between the faces, something moved wrong. Not across the road, but along it, wearing distance like a coat. They slammed the doors in the same instant. The car felt thin as a tin toy. Drive, Daniel said, and the words sounded like a prayer that was afraid of being overheard. Lucas pressed the pedal. The road narrowed, or their courage did, or both. The painted line paled to a ghost, and then to the idea of a line. The shoulder sloughed away into a ditch that hadn't been there the first time or the second, or in any world that kept its promises. Another set. They couldn't not look. Motel. The word always sagged as if wet with its own insistence. A ripple crossed the pool from an absent foot. Pie. Fork marks had appeared where no hand had touched. 5 neat stabs that made the slice lean, listening. Mascot. The tire's circle tunneled inward until Lucas felt the reflex to steer around it, like avoiding a hole. Marina started counting under her breath, numbers like beads. At 11, she lost them and began again. This is wrong, Lucas. We have to stop existing correctly, or it will keep fitting us into itself. What does that mean? Lucas asked, but he already knew. Their breaths were matching the rhythm of the road. Don't say anything, Daniel whispered. He likes voices. He didn't say who he was. The diary had said enough. Marina sobbed once, a small sound that shook her whole body. Please, please, I don't want to sit still in this. We won't, Lucas promised, and the promise cracked like thin ice. Fuel slid toward empty. The engine developed a hollow note, a breath held too long. The air inside the car cooled until their skin prickled. Outside, lightning smudged the horizon without thunder, like someone striking matches behind a curtain. Between billboards, the spaces ran deeper than the road. Faces on paper flirted with other faces, shadows that didn't belong to the print, smiles that tried on new mouths. For a blink, the motel's pool reflected 3 people sitting in a car that wasn't theirs. For a blink, the mascot's eyes had pupils that weren't circles at all but slits or spirals or doors. Don't look, Daniel said. He had his hands over his face again. He didn't move them, but he peered through his fingers like a child. They didn't speak for a stretch that wasn't a distance. The car's beams scraped bark from trunks as if the trees had stepped closer to be counted. The windshield gathered a fine mist that bead by bead drew the shape of a hand and then forgot the shape. The next trio rose. Motel. Pool black as a pupil. The word blue sinking letter by letter. Pie. The slice's edge trembled, barely, as if the photo had remembered heat. Mascot. The smile knew their names without making them. Please, Marina said, and the word was not to Lucas. The road stopped pretending to be a road. The ditch became packed earth. The line disappeared. The trees, as one breath, stepped back, not to give them mercy, but because something larger needed room. The engine hiccuped, once, twice, like a heart testing how many beats it could skip and still be believed. The gauge kissed empty and lingered there, affectionate. No one touched the wheel. The car rolled as if down a throat into a mouth, headlights gathering on something pale ahead that was not pavement and not field, and not any place the county had zoned. Do you feel that? Daniel asked, and this time none of them pretended it was a question. They rounded a bend that hadn't existed before. The night opened. Act 3. The trees stepped back all at once, and the road slid into a perfect circle of open ground. They coasted on momentum. The engine coughed and died. Headlights washed a ring of standing stones, tall, old, arranged like vertebrae the earth had decided to show. The carvings weren't letters. They were lines that curved only while you watched, then remembered being straight when you blinked. The ground inside the ring was too smooth, as if many feet had agreed not to leave prints. Figures were already there. Hoods, heavy cloth dark as wet sacks, hems dragged through damp soil. Faces sat back in the shadows and didn't hurry to be seen. Around each neck the same irregular stone pendant the attendant had worn, light-hungry, patient. One figure raised its pendant, and the stone answered with a soft, wrong pulse. Others lifted theirs, the pulses synchronized. The ring of stones kept time. Cloud shouldered across the stars. A smell of rain arrived without rain. Lightning stitched the sky, far then nearer, each flash flattening the world into static white truth. Beyond the stones, something tall stood where the forest should have been. Gaunt, limb ratios wrong in every direction. With each blink of light it rearranged itself, an arm where a leg had been, a joint bending on an axis living bodies don't own. Its head rose narrow and high, split down the center by a slit that opened and closed like a mouth, learning how many ways a mouth could be. Tendrils as thin as wires tasted the air, and the face, when it had one, kept changing. A pleasant, borrowed human smile, a festival grotesque, then no face at all, just the clean absence between choices. A hood turned in the headlights, and for a beat, the line of its jaw was familiar. The attendant's pendant drank light the same way. The smile that flickered under his hood had never been printed on a billboard. It didn't need to be. Between flashes, the billboards felt close, present in the clearing the way memories can be present. Always blue water, a slice that watched, a grin stretched by fingers you couldn't see. The road had not sold them anything. It had taught them how to look. The pendant's pulses deepened until the air learned the rhythm. Thump, thump, thump. The stones answered. Breath tried to copy it. The windshield fogged from the inside without temperature, letters forming and failing before they could be read. Lucas's hand found the key as if manners mattered. Nothing turned. The locks clicked once, then twice, then stopped pretending to be locks. Outside, the hoods leaned as if listening for the moment to move. "The road," Daniel said, and his voice shook. "It was never a road." "It's an altar," Marina finished, tears running quiet. Lightning tore the sky one last time. The tall thing leaned closer without crossing space, masks flipping like a dealer laying down cards. Somewhere between the stones, the knot wind spoke in the syllables of their names, and then in shapes that weren't words at all. The hooded ring stepped forward together. Cloth whispered. Pendants beat. They came toward the car,